I think a starting point for this is recognizing that the diagnosing of children with bipolar disorder has increased 40-fold in the last 10 years. And many of the world experts on bipolar disorder say that it represents overdiagnosis, to say the least. There's lots of kids that have a tremendous amount of mood instability, way beyond sort of normal temper tantrums. And yet a lot of kids that have that common denominator, emotional instability, have been diagnosed as having bipolar disorder, and a consequence of that is that they get started on treatment with medications that, while on the one hand being helpful with some people that have bipolar disorder, especially adults and teenagers, clearly the bipolar mood stabilizers are necessary and life-saving. The efficacy in children is not well established, but these drugs are quite problematic. They carry very high side effect burdens, sometimes dangerous side effects, and a great concern has been then that the result of just calling all these kids bipolar is to expose them to treatments that maybe for a small percentage would be helpful, but for a lot of them, they're less of a squeaky wheel because the drugs sedate them, but they don't really treat the basic disorder. So I think there's been a significant amount of confusion then in trying to get a handle on, okay, we have all these kids that do have noticeably problematic mood problems, but could it be that it represents a number of different kinds of underlying causes, underlying etiologies, and to simply call them all bipolar is probably not the right way to go. So I think there's been a move towards, can we try to distinguish subtypes among these kids who have a horrible time regulating emotions, okay, into meaningful subcategories, not just for the purpose of labeling, but to try to differentiate them from one another and from bipolar disorder. And then if they can come up with meaningful and reliable subcategories, then it can begin the search for specific treatments to see if for that particular group are these treatments effective. So I think the intention from the get-go is right on the money, because otherwise diagnosis is going to be extremely unclear for these kids, and many will get exposed to treatments that are ineffective or can be harmful to them. Now, there's been controversy about that particular disorder. There have been other variations, temper dysregulation disorder, and so forth. I think the direction this is going is sound, but we'll have to really see if the new diagnosis holds water, and that is this going to be a reliable subcategory of mood problem, and if so, will it really yield some new insights about treatments? So that's where I stand on that. I think it's a good thing to do. My guess is that there are going to be dozens of different kinds of underlying problems that might show themselves in terms of severe mood dysregulation or severe emotional instability, but they're not all bipolar disorders. I'm not saying that the specific diagnosis is going to hold up. Usually takes a year or two of it being out there and being used by clinicians to find out if it really has merit or not. But what I'm in favor of is to look at subcategories. And let me give you two examples of something. Okay, one is these children that had a significant fetal alcohol exposure. Now, they have symptoms that are similar to ADHD. They have enormous problems regulating their emotions, especially anger, irritability, aggression, temper tantrums, and so forth. Another group are kids that were exposed to very early severe neglect or trauma. It could be physical or psychological or sexual trauma that leave permanent scars in terms of the nervous system, the parts of the brain that regulate emotions. Now, those two groups are not people with bipolar disorder. Many of these kids have no family history of bipolar disorder, but they clearly have brain-based problems with severe problems with mood regulation. And if we say, well, either they're in bipolar disorder not otherwise specified or some kind of ill-defined group, then where do you go in terms of doing research to see what treatments are going to work with these subclasses of kids? I think that it behooves us to get more clarity about subtypes of mood problems in children only in terms of how that leads to research to try to nail down treatments. And it doesn't have to be drug treatments. It could be behavioral treatments or what have you. But I think we just need to get more specificity rather than having this this sort of umbrella, that currently is bipolar spectrum disorder.